So while covering the elections here in Bihar, we identified a major issue that concerns thousands of people in Bihar, which is lack of access to ration and issues concerning the public distribution system or the PDS. Today we have with us Jean Drèze, who's been working across the country on public distribution system for the last couple of years. Thank you so much, Jean, for joining us. I would like to start the discussion with sort of what do you think are the problems that PDS is facing across the country, and what are Bihar-specific issues that no other state has sort of seen so far?
Well, I think that for a long time there has been a major problem of corruption in the PDS in most parts of the country to various degrees. And I think Bihar has been one of the most corrupt for a long time, not just in the PDS but also many other schemes. If you look back 15 years or even 10 years for that matter, I mean, in those days in Bihar, something like 80 or 90% of the food grain meant for poor people and distributed through the PDS were siphoned off by corrupt dealers. That has improved very substantially, but compared to other states, Bihar is still far behind. I mean, today I would guess that people get maybe 8 or 9 months ration out of 12 over the years, whereas in most other states I think they get 12 months out of 12 with maybe some cuts, like, if you're supposed to get 25 kilos, maybe you get 22, 23, 24 kilos. But here most people still report instances where the entire month's ration is being siphoned off by the dealer. So I think there's still a long way to go, but the progress that has been made shows that further progress can be made. There was a very big progress made around the time of the introduction of the National Food Security Act, and then also before the previous assembly elections. And it's a pity that in this case, this year, we're not seeing the same kind of momentum, but it can happen in the future. And I feel that in due course, sooner or later, Bihar will be able to manage the PDS as well as any other states, even Chhattisgarh or Tamil Nadu. There's no fundamental reason why it cannot do that, but it requires being firm, being committed to the PDS, taking action against corrupt dealers, and empowering people to claim their entitlements.
Right. And do you feel that that sort of firmness is lacking politically right now when we look at the state government?
I think it's largely a matter of political commitment. We have seen some of it emerging. I think many politicians now understand that they will get credit for running the PDS, and the way in which earlier they used to collude with the corrupt dealers at the expense of poor people, I think that has changed to a large extent. But more commitment is required. There's a general problem in Indian politics of lack of interest and focus on poor people's interests and rights. And so that applies to the PDS as well. I mean, the PDS is one of the most important things for poor people. It is the most basic mechanism through which they are given some economic security. But that priority is not reflected in the political or the policy agenda. So I think we still have a long way to go in giving adequate importance to this social security measure.
Right. And do you think in comparison to sort of Bihar, Jharkhand and Odisha, Chhattisgarh, who have been working on the PDS, they have done better or worse than Bihar? And what are things that Bihar could sort of learn?
They have done better. Some of them have done a lot better, certainly Chhattisgarh, and I would say even Orissa. Even Jharkhand, I feel, is ahead of Bihar, although it's not doing as well as Chhattisgarh and Orissa. Bihar is lagging behind. Of course, if you compare with what it was earlier, it does show a lot of improvement, so that shows that even Bihar can improve, but it is still way behind.
Right. And what do you think are the sort of solutions that we're looking at when it comes to Bihar that could fix these larger issues concerning PDS, and also could fix these state-specific issues that Bihar has been seeing with access to ration?
So I think Bihar has an extreme problem of overwhelming power of the private dealers over local ration card holders. I mean, that happens to different extents in different states, but I think Bihar is really extreme. They are basically in a position of monopoly. They are upper caste, they are rich people, they have political connections, and that is what it makes it difficult for people to claim their entitlements. So what is needed is much better grievance redressal mechanism, facilities for people to complain, transparency at all levels, and I would even say ideally just get rid of these private dealers and try to give the licenses to community institutions like self-help groups, cooperatives, Gram Panchayat. That is the most radical step that was taken in Chhattisgarh and Orissa with dramatic results. But that requires, of course, a political firmness that is lacking at the moment.
True, true. Also, my last question, Jean, would be, Bihar has been in the news at least for the last 6 months, even before the elections. because of this massive inflow of migrant workers that was happening into the state, there were multiple state-specific schemes and center schemes that were focusing on access to free ration, extra ration, dry ration. And there have been reports of multiple people not having received those. There were protests during the same time. So how do you think the state sort of handled access to ration during the lockdown in the last 6 months or so?
I think what is very important in this situation, it was important during the lockdown and it remains important today, is to increase the coverage of the PDS, and I would say even make it universal in a state like Bihar, certainly in rural areas. That will also largely take care of the problems of the migrants, because the migrants are mostly young men who leave their families behind and then they go to work in the cities where they enter a kind of cash economy. Their main concern is whether their families are going to be secure where they are. So if you universalize the PDS, that will give a sense of security to these migrant workers as well. The ones who will not benefit from that are the ones who migrate in entire families, like maybe they go to brick kilns in Uttar Pradesh for a few months and they will not be able to take the ration card there and get the food there. And that is why there is some talk today about portability of PDS benefits,
True.
which I think is not a bad idea. But I have reservations about the manner in which it is planned to be done today. I feel portability should first be sought to be achieved at the local level and at the state level, and then if it works, extend it to the national level. But the way the central government is trying to do it in one shot at the national level, I think that is a recipe for disaster, especially because it is going to be based on compulsory Aadhaar-based biometric authentication, and we have seen the price that people often pay for that. So I think we have to be very cautious about this.
Right. Thank you so much, Jean. And we are working on a detailed analysis piece on India spend on the public distribution system in Bihar. So watch out for that and stay tuned to India Spend.